When it comes to striving for access to capital, you do not have many attempts when you're going after these credit limits, these credit cards, whether personal or business, before you could be locked out for months at a time. Very important to be very strategic. The emerging financial space, content creation space has done a great job at creating the concept of gathering data points before you apply, understanding bureaus, understanding what the lenders are looking for, etc. One factor that does not get covered much is understanding how to determine what institution you should be trying for from the surface level, not just what data points they're looking for, but literally the scale of that institution. That's what we're going to focus on when we have this conversation, because it's very important to understand that every single institution is going to have somewhat of its own business model. It's going to have its own core value structure on who they're looking to do business with. When you think about, for example, Navy Federal has been the greatest hype train of financial institutions since the 2020 pandemic, for great reason. My father was served in the military. He's a military veteran. So thanks to his service, I've been able to get access to Navy Federal. I've had a wonderful experience at Navy Federal, so I understand it. But what gets lost or gets confused is that many content creators will promote Navy Federal almost to the extent where they'll have you thinking that Navy Federal is one of the biggest banks in the world. They are the biggest credit union in the world. But compared to private commercial bank institutions, Navy Federal might as well be a regional bank in size and assets. What that basically means is they are going to be exceptionally limited in the amount of capital that they can give any individual client at one time, if that makes sense. Many already know that Navy Federal has a pretty open rule, or at least a ton of data points indicate that about $80,000 is the max exposure limit just for credit cards. To be completely honest, for most of us, $80,000 sounds like a ton of capital. To a degree, it is. In reality, for many of you who have bigger goals and ambitions, $80,000 is going to be a teardrop in the bucket at some point in your personal or business journey, financially speaking. So this is where it's important to understand what size, what type of institution do I need at this particular juncture in my financial journey. If I'm looking to maximize my attempts with institutions, I need to understand the framework at which who I need to be striving to do research on and who I need to be building my banking relationships with to apply for. Navy Federal is an example. Just like most credit unions and other small local banks, the barrier of entry is lower. And that is why they get so much attention in the financial space, on the internet, these hyped places to go get credit lines, is because most people are looking for the lowest barrier of entry. They're not looking for much resistance. And many people don't want to do the work to get access to what in the end could turn out to be much better, higher potential financial institutions. So what I mean by that is, yes, going in with Navy Federal, it is quite possible you can go in with a negative credit record, low to no income, very little cash saved, and within 90 days and sometimes less, still get access to credit cards and at pretty reasonable limits. That's great. I understand how motivational that can be, inspiring. I understand how that can feel, and I understand it can make a huge impact for many of us financially to get access to that capital. But for those of us who have bigger plans and aspirations, at some point, the ceiling Navy Federal, as many other credit unions, is going to hit, and the personal and in the business lending space is going to be a problem. And this is why it's important for those of you who are in unique financial positions to understand, not all of you are in financial positions where you need low barrier to entry. You need scalability. You need institutions that are going to be able to match you when you get to the point where you need upper 5, 6 figures, deep 6 figures, and available credit, whether that be credit lines, whether that be credit cards, whether that's going to be different loans and lines of credit. You are going to need institutions that can keep up with your growth. This is why commercial banks, mid to larger size private commercial banks can be the mecca for many of us. And we kind of take it for granted because they can be harder to get into and harder to build a relationship with. But many of us, if you stop and pay attention in life, understand the things that we have to work the hardest for oftentimes is the most rewarding. That's just facts. When you are in your financial journey, you need to assess, am I in the early innings of my financial journey? Do I need to get a couple motivational kickstarters going and start with some of these easy entry, low barrier to entry credit unions? Do I need to get started with some of these SECUs, the Navy Federals? Or am I at a point in my journey where I can afford to jump directly into these larger institutions, these Capital Ones, these Citi, American Express, Chase Bank? Am I ready for that? Because at the end of the day, these are the institutions when you need access to, deep six figures in capital, or you need unique loan structures. They're the ones when you have the money that are going to be able to meet those needs. Navy Federal, SECUs, Penn Fed, all of these institutions are going to tap out on you. And when you put too much of the infrastructure of your business and your entrepreneurship into an institution that can't keep up with your growth, yes, it was easy to get in. Yes, they gave you great limits in the beginning, but at some point in time, you're going to need them up here and they're not going to be able to help you. And now you have to break down all this infrastructure and move it over to a larger institution. And even with today's technology, that can take weeks or even months to do effectively. You could interrupt your entire business model trying to move that financial infrastructure over, meaning your ability to transact money in and out, the heartbeat, the blood flow of your business could be interrupted because you didn't pay attention to the mid to longer term game with these financial institutions. This is the way you need to be thinking when you're talking about building out. Yes, many of you are starting at the ground floor and you just need a foundational base who's going to give you a shot. I am all for that. I support that concept. Don't get lost in what's easy. At some point in time, what's easy is going to hit a ceiling, and you hopefully will be at a position where you're beyond that. You need to use these smaller institutions to get yourself in a certain financial position, to get your financial reputation, to get your initial business funding going. And you need to immediately start taking that success and bringing it and planting the seeds over in one of these larger commercial institutions. Because once you get up to that private client type of level, once you get up into that wealth management, private wealth type of level where you're talking about deep 6-7 figures in business activity and personal funding and personal wealth, you're going to outgrow Navy Federal. You're going to outgrow Penn Fed. You're going to outgrow SECUs, etc. You need to have the seeds planted and the infrastructure planted, the relationships established and in place in advance. This is how you prepare and lay down a foundation for your own future growth. To all my pioneers, welcome back. To all my new viewers, welcome in. You want to learn more about the channel? Check out the description below. You're going to learn more about how to support the channel. Links to some great credit card opportunities are also in the description below. Comment and let me know what your thought process is on the millionaire mindset that I just laid out for y'all. Let me know what your experience has been with these smaller institutions. Let me know what your experience has been growing. Let me know how many of you have reached these plateaus and needed better access to capital and what these commercial institutions are offering. Comment that conversation down below. Other than that, I want y'all to stay focused. Stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon.
This is JP from Blueprint for Prosperity Network, a channel dedicated to helping you increase your net worth through relationship banking, maximizing your borrowing capacity, the proper use of life insurance, and the ownership of real estate. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm uploading content on a daily basis to help you customize your blueprint for prosperity.